Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni is once again the winner of the 2026 presidential election, extending his long hold on power after a tightly watched vote. The focus now shifts to the post-election mood and security situation in the country. Michael Baleke reports from Kampala.
President Yoweri Museveni has won a seventh term with 71% of the vote, according to the final tally. His main challenger, Bobi Wine, received 24%. The result extends Mr. Museveni's rule to 4 decades, making him one of Africa's longest-serving leaders. But the outcome is fiercely disputed. Opposition supporters are protesting the vote, calling the election a sham and alleging widespread rigging and voter intimidation. International observer missions also flagged irregularities, restricted media freedom, and heavy-handed security during the voting process. President Museveni's ruling NRM party also secured a strong majority in parliament, consolidating its control. The election exposed deep generational divides in a country where many young people faced unemployment and rising costs, issues that dominated the campaign. For now, the government urges calm while opposition weighs its next steps. Uganda enters a new chapter, but the political divide remains sharply drawn. Michael Baleke, SABC News, Kampala.
All right, so Uganda's presidential election has once again returned Yoweri Museveni to power, extending his leadership that's shaped the country for nearly 4 decades. But beyond the official results, the political temperature remains high, with opposition parties rejecting the outcome completely and questions being raised about the space for any kind of dissent, youth participation, and the future of democratic environment. Well, to help us understand how this moment is being felt on the ground, particularly amongst young Ugandans, we're now joined by Ugandan activist and student leader Aloikin Praise Opoloje. Aloikin, thank you very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter. I'm glad to be here.
I wonder, let's just start from your own personal view. Take us into your world this morning. The mood among young people in Uganda, and particularly where you are.
So most of it is not clearly captured because even though the internet has been restored, there is still a restriction on social media. So we cannot really get the actual feel, but some people have been able to go around this and use their VPN. And I can say the mood is, people are so shocked. People are angry, people are disappointed, but also people are fed up. People are fed up of a dictatorship that is now no longer even trying to appease the people to stay in power, but is imposing itself on the people with military rule. As we speak in Uganda, especially in the central region, there are people already protesting the result and lives are being lost already. The last time I checked, the number of people that had been lost had come up to 14, and those are the ones that we can tell because, you know, the internet is not yet back completely, so we do not have information in full, we just have information in part. But also there is a fatigue among most Ugandans concerning the elections as a way to take out the NRM system that has enforced itself in Uganda for such a long time now, close to 4 decades now that they have claimed to have won these elections. But Ugandans are not taking this. Youth, young people are not taking this because not even in Museveni's prime, when he had just come out of the bush and was a darling of Uganda, did he score that percentage? Well, it may seem a small percentage, especially if you juxtapose it with what happened in Tanzania, but with the context of Uganda, this percentage is still so big because not even in his prime had he ever won this. And now when there is more dissent, when there is even a stronger opposition, when there is fatigue of the NRM government, they claim that this is the percentage that he has won. And Ugandans and the opposition and young people are asking for the breakdown of these results. And up to now, we have not yet gotten the breakdown of these results. And how do you expect us to even believe these results when there are clear videos of ballot ticking, ballot stuffing, where we see soldiers were sitting at the benches that people were supposed to tick from their candidates and showing them exactly where to tick, where the army was up and down. The voter turn-up itself was very, very limited. And those that turned up and belonged to the opposition themselves, some were beaten, others were assaulted, hundreds were arrested. As we speak, over 300 members of the opposition, especially who are young people, are behind bars, others are disappeared, and different leaders of the opposition have been disappeared, and we still do not know their whereabouts. So, young people.
So, Aloikin, do you believe that the majority of Ugandans, particularly young people, don't want President Museveni anymore?
Yes, I believe that, and I have substantive reasons for believing that. If we go back to the campaigns, the election campaigns that have been happening, you cannot convince a sane or reasonable man that those thousands of people would flock the opposition. They were not drawn there. They were not paid money to be there. They knew the risks of being there. Even after the previous campaigns had people tear gassed, had people shot, they would still go back the next day to support the opposition. And then on the other end, the winning party that won with that kind of majority had to ferry students who are not yet even eligible to vote, give them shots of the NRM to flock these campaigns. And they want to convince us that people that were willing to risk their lives to die did not turn up to vote in the large numbers that they did. Even after they tried to criminalize belonging to the opposition, still people have shown up and showed solidarity to the opposition. It's not the opposition that is bribing, it is the government that was giving out money to voters to come and just show support at a campaign. I mean, to come and eat. They were giving them food, rice, pilau, to come to campaigns. They were trying all means possible to pull people towards their campaigns. But the results are completely not reflecting this. But also there are some discrepancies where you find the rigging even just at the MP level, because these elections had the presidential elections, but also the MP elections. And you can clearly see that there are discrepancies. You will find areas where Museveni totally won completely by what they are trying to show to us. But then you come down and find that the opposition, the NRM members that were running at NRM level completely lost. And how voting patterns are in Uganda is that people vote not just individuals, but they vote parties, you understand? So how can you explain that an MP of the NRM will completely lose out and then the president will have this big percentage? And this just did not happen in certain, polling stations or areas or districts. It's a pattern that happened across the country.
So what is the plan? Young people saying that these elections can't be believed. Is there a plan in terms of maybe finding a direction for the country in spite of what's happening?
Well, I can't say there is a concrete plan because the internet is off. You cannot even mobilize. You cannot try to strategize on the way forward. But as the opposition campaign had been, it was for people to go vote, for them to protect their vote, and for them to demand for their vote. So currently, the conversation is around how do we demand for our vote? But of course, we have means that we have already eliminated, things like petitions in court. Because for the past two elections that have been contested in court, despite overwhelming evidence, the courts always said this was not substantial evidence. You get to overturn an election. So clearly, that is not an option. But also the trend in this election has been that the judiciary itself has been used to criminalize the opposition and it can no longer be trusted. So we are looking at means that do not really involve using the system that the NRM has already corrupted and taken up towards itself. So it's most likely going to be around the lines of an uprising of the people to demand for their agency to be respected. Yes. So, but there is no concrete plan as of yet.
So, what's your message to bodies like the East African Community and maybe even the African Union? What do you want to say to them as a young Ugandan?
As a young Ugandan, I'd like to say that I'm completely disappointed in these bodies, especially the African Union, that even after observing all the injustices, even after the observers giving their opinion on this election, that it was not free, it was not fair, people's lives were lost, ballots were printed, they were stuffed, that they came up immediately to acknowledge this elect win of Museveni and not really to inquire into the injustices that happened. We are disappointed as youth of Uganda. I am personally disappointed that a body that is supposed to protect the rights of Africans, the rights of East Africans, is now just entrenching a leadership that has existed to torment Ugandans and completely erode the rule of law. And I can't say I expected better from them. This is a pattern they have maintained. When Tanzania happened, they had to be pushed to the bone for them to release a shaggy statement trying to, show their support for the people of Tanzania. But this is now a pattern, and I must say that I wasn't in any way disappointed because I did not expect any better. It's now no longer news that these bodies are just systems created to entrench personal interests of different leaders across the continent, but also in the region of East Africa. But also, I didn't expect better from Ruto or Samia or, Ethiopia, because still these are dictators even back home. They do not give people justice. So how are they going to give justice to another country which has a fellow dictator? They're just protecting their own sort of, kingdoms that they have created. But that has to change. That cannot be the case. And it's so hard for us to expect change from these very people, like I've already stated. But the institutions themselves should realize that their mandate is to protect the people and not the different presidents of these different states. They need to separate themselves and help Ugandans achieve the justice that they deserve, and that their agency should be respected and that democracy should be upheld.
Aloikin, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but thank you so much indeed for giving us your time. I know that these kinds of interviews also come with some risk, but thank you so much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us and giving us a glimpse of what it's like to be a young person in Uganda. That was Aloikin Praise Opoloje, who's a Ugandan activist and student leader who is horrified, upset, mad about what's happened in the elections in Uganda.